Hey guys, Scott here. Today we're going to look over the developer update for the changes from the Freddy patch from PTB to live. There were definitely a couple of things on the PTB that were very underwhelming about Freddy, namely the dream pallets and the whole rupture feature being basically useless, so that got a bit of a tweak. There's been some perk changes, some that don't really make too much sense, so we'll go over them all right here, but not a very long one here, but let's start with Freddy himself. So the hinder duration from the dream snares, which now go outwards instead of being placed on the ground, they go out kind of like a shockwave. It's been slightly buffed. The cooldown is now 7 seconds instead of 5 seconds. They want to incentivize, skillful hits rather than just spamming it a bunch of times and just hitting over and over again, which is the right decision in my opinion. These are all pretty minor changes, so it's not really that big of a deal, but that's the right mindset to have. You want fewer skillful hits, not more spammy, inaccurate hits. So that's good design. Improve the sound cue when charging dream snares. So this is just a little cue now for when you're fully charged, so that's good to have. And they even say nothing drastic here. A few tweaks improve quality of life, reduce spam potential, particularly to high level play. I can agree with that. I'm not really sure this is going to do much of anything like this. These are very minor tweaks, so it's pretty much as is, but as is, it was fine on the PTB. I didn't really think it needed much other change than that. So dream pallets were the main issue. They were okay at making people route to tiles that no longer actually had a pallet in it, but usually what a dream pallet would do was just give you a hit when you were already going to get a hit anyway, so it was useless most of the time. There was also the rupture feature, which was even more useless because you could make a pallet explode and damage somebody. The problem was you could just simply run back into the killer and take your regular M1 to prevent the double hit from happening. You can path away from it left or right, or you can make it so you just drop the pallet, which canceled the rupture. So it was useless for like 10 different reasons, and in fact only had like 1 or 2 actual applications, and that was on maps like the game that had specific multi-level interactions because it was sort of a cylinder, not a sphere. So that was basically it. Other than that, it was pretty much useless. So what they did now was change the rupture range to 3.5 meters. So that's going to give you a little bit of extra distance to try to actually hit the damaging attack now. Again, it's a very, very small amount, but, the 0.5 meters will be noticeable on the circle. I understand they want to be conservative with this because it is, frankly, a pretty boring zoning power, and we don't want those to be too strong or annoying because the correct play most of the time is just going to be turn left or turn right. Don't try to greet it through the pallet because you're probably not going to make it. So it becomes a foregone conclusion that your only correct play is to just go left or right. So when there's ever an interaction like that where there's a single correct option, that ends up not being very good gameplay because there's no choices being made anymore. The killer readies the rupture, survivor must run away from it. That's the only correct play every single time. So you don't want it to be too strong or we enter that type of scenario. You want it to be plausible that if the killer does it a bit late, the survivor can get through the pallet, or if they do it a bit early, they can path away it before it hits them. So you want to have a little bit of a wiggle room there while also maintaining actual use of the ability. So this one's kind of hard to balance because of how uninteresting, I'll just be honest, the actual zoning of rupture is. It doesn't slow down Freddy whatsoever. It costs him nothing to do it, so there's no reason not to. So it's sort of like I don't want it to be actually too strong because it's super boring, but at the same time, it did nothing before. So hopefully this is a nice little middle ground with it being a bit bigger and it not being cancelable by dropping it, because dropping the pallet and canceling it was just so dumb and made it so the correct play every time was just simply drop the pallet on the same side if you're not going to make it, or on the other side if you were able to get to the other side, and that was it. That was this. You just did the same thing every time. Super boring. So a bit better now, a bit stronger for Freddy. Remains to be seen how effective it'll be. I'll have to mess around with it tomorrow on the actual live servers, but better. It's better. It's better design than it was before, I think. So I think that's good. Next, dream projection actually is cancelable again now. This was a very, very important feature on the old Freddy where you could be chasing someone into a generator, you could dream project to the generator, and then the survivor basically had to make a 50-50 call of whether or not you were going to complete that teleport or you were just going to keep chasing him so they might run back into you. It was a fun little mind game, and it was a true 50-50 on both sides. So it was completely fair. There was no reason to nerf that or take it away because it didn't benefit anyone in particular. So I think it was completely fine. So now you're able to do that again. The downside is if you do cancel it, you get the full cooldown, whereas the old Freddy would not incur the full cooldown. So it's still weaker than before, but then also it's much stronger than before because you can teleport to healing survivors that are asleep now, which is a massive, massive buff. So overall, I would say it's a buff. it didn't really need to have the whole teleport thing removed at all, because that is an example of a fair 50-50, and those are fine. I mean, they're not particularly exciting, but balance-wise, completely fine. There's nothing wrong with those, so I didn't think that needed a nerf whatsoever, and they added a little bit of it back, but you still have a long cooldown after, so better than before. But there's also a little bit of an indicator now when a survivor is or when the killer triggers the dream projection on a survivor healing in the dream world. So I'm guessing the survivors will have a bit more time to react to it, so that's a little bit of a nerf as well. Usually it's pretty obvious, so it doesn't matter, but I can think of a couple of fringe scenarios where this will make the effect slightly worse because the survivor will have slightly more time to react. So overall, sort of side grades, this is a buff, but it's slight overall buff, I would say. That one's kind of hard to say. I don't know why they were so timid with this. I think it was okay to just let this be actually cancelable, normal, just like it used to be. I feel like it just didn't need the restrictions at all there. The wake up interaction now takes priority over healing if an injured survivor is asleep. An awake survivor will be able to wake them up without healing them. This was an issue because people were trying to wake people up, but they ended up healing them instead, which meant Freddy could immediately teleport to them. It was very frustrating. That's just UI jank that should have been fixed. It does end up nerfing the killer, but it was stupid. It was a dumb reason why that was happening. It was like, a misclick. When you try to unhook somebody and you self-care instead, that level of frustration should never be in the game. So that's a good change. It does make Freddy very slightly weaker, but it definitely needed a change. Jump rope and unicorn block were changed. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember what the hell these do. I'm gonna just be honest, I don't remember what they do. Shit. For perk changes, they made wake up. Okay, I don't know why they did this. Or rather, I know why they made this change, but they didn't do it well, in my opinion. So on the PTB, wake up was buffed to 50%. You open exit gates 50% faster, which is very significant, right? So what they've done now is for each survivor alive, you open gates 12.5% faster, which means with all 4 survivors up, you open gates still 50% faster. The reason they did this is because they didn't want to create a rat build with like Soul Survivor and Wake Up where you wait for everybody to die and then you have like an insane opening speed. That would be kind of busted and also reward super selfish dick play. Like you don't want to be that survivor that just sits there and waits for your team to die and then you rat out one of the exit gates once the hatch is closed, and the new Wake Up made that even easier to do. So I understand where they're coming from with this. This is a good idea to have. I just think the numbers should have been kind of tweaked a bit to where if you were the last survivor, it would sort of mirror the old ability, I guess. But instead of it just being 50% faster and it becoming actually a decent perk, now you have to basically full power everybody is still alive for it to reach the level of buff of of how it used to be. So if you have 2 people alive, it'll be as strong as it is, as it was previously with 25%. If you have the whole team alive, it'll be notably better. I just feel like the perk wasn't strong enough to really worry about any of this. Wake Up is not exactly meta. Making it 25% faster wasn't going to shift any metas. It just made the perk actually worth considering to use. You still need to get to endgame. It's still very conditional. You need to be the one opening the gate. There's still a lot of conditions to go into something that frankly just saves you a few seconds. It wasn't really that crazy. So overall, I think this is a weird change. It didn't need this nerf. I understand why they wanted to go that way. They don't want to make the rat build, but yeah, I don't know. Finally, there's Beast of Prey that confused me so much I had to actually cancel the recording and look stuff up. This just hurt my head. So they're saying this is what the old version did. Hides the red stain for 25 seconds, and it's got a cooldown of 2 minutes. Now it hides the red stain for 40 seconds, has a cooldown of 2 minutes. But that's not what it did. That's what it did like 6 years ago. It gives you undetectable when you get Bloodlust. And even on the PTB, they made it so you get undetectable for 20 seconds when you gain Bloodlust. That's not what the perk did. It's like they're patching something from like 6 years ago. I'm so confused as to why they thought that was the old version, because that's not what... That perk is so underutilized, the fucking devs don't know what it does. Well, it's still shit. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching.